Chapter 19, Rebirth. In the preceding chapter we have explained that the soul, falling into the second soul's slumber, is caught up by the currents of the karmic attraction and is carried on toward rebirth in an environment and with ties in accordance with the sum of its character and desires. As we shall see in the succeeding chapters, some souls escape this current of rebirth and are instead carried on to higher spheres of activity and being. But by far the great majority of the souls on the astral plane move forward toward earthly rebirth, such being their karma. But here we must caution the student against falling into the far too common error of supposing that this karma is a stern something, meting out rewards and punishment according to some established code. Instead, karma is simply the law of spiritual cause and effect. We are punished not because of our sins, but by them. We are rewarded not because of our good deeds, but by them. In short, our rewards and punishments arise from the very nature of our character, and our character is the sum total of our desire. Therefore, desire is the motive power of karma, and through karma, of our rebirth. To many it seems as if rebirth upon earth is something forced upon the soul in spite of its desire. The very opposite is true, for the sum of the desires of the soul constitute the very actual motive power leading to the rebirth. Those who are reborn on earth are not reborn against their will or desire. On the contrary, they are reborn because they actually desire it. They are carried into the current of rebirth because their taste and desires have created longings that can be satisfied only by renewed life in the flesh. Although they are not conscious of it, they instinctively place themselves again within the operations of the law of attraction and are swept on to rebirth, in exactly the environment best calculated to enable them to live out and outlive their desires, to express and exhaust the force of desire. They hunger to satisfy their longings, and until that hunger is appeased, the desires cannot be discarded. This does not mean that every desire must necessarily be lived out, for it happens frequently that new insight and experience causes the soul to turn with loathing from the formal object desire, and the desire thus dies a natural death. But so long as the desire remains alive, it tends to attract the soul towards objects and environment which is likely to satisfy it. This is true of the soul on the astral plane, as well as in earthly life. Desire is always the great motive power of the soul in determining rebirth. The soul preserving its desire for material things, the things of flesh in the material life, and not being able to divorce itself from these things, will naturally fall into the current of rebirth, which will lead it toward conditions in which these desires will flourish and become manifest. It is only when the soul, by means of many earthly life, begins to see the worthlessness and illusory nature of earthly desires, that it begins to become attracted by the things of life of its higher nature, and escaping the flowing currents of earthly rebirth, it rises above them and is carried to higher spheres. The average person, after years of earthly experience, is apt to say that he or she has no more desires for earthly life, and that his or her only desire is to leave the same behind forever. These persons are perfectly sincere in their statements and belief, but a glance into their inmost soul would reveal an entirely different state of affairs. They are not, as a rule, really tired of earthly life, but merely of the particular kind of earth life which they have experienced during that incarnation. They have discovered the illusory nature of a certain set of earthly experiences and feel disgusted at the same. But they are still full of another set of desires and have hunger for another set of experiences on earth. They have failed to find happiness or satisfaction in their own experience, but they will admit, if they are honest with themselves, that if they could have had such things, so and so instead of this and thus, they would have found happiness and satisfaction. The if may have been satisfied love, wealth, fame, gratified ambition, success of various kinds. But be what it may, the if is nearly always there, and that if really is the seed of the remaining desires. And the longing for that if is really the motive for the rebirth. Very few persons would care to live over their earth life according to their own statements, and they are honest enough in the statement. But like old Omar, they would be perfectly willing to remake the world according to their heart's desire, and then live the earth life. Do you see what we mean? It is not earth life that is distasteful to them, but merely the particular experience of earth life which are disdained. Give to the average man and woman youth, health, wealth, talent, and love, and they will be very willing to begin the round of earth life afresh. It is only the absence of or failure in these or similar things which causes them to feel that life is a failure, a thing to be joyfully left behind. The soul in its sojourn on the astral is rested, refreshed, and reinvigorated. It has forgotten the weariness of life which it had experienced in the previous incarnation. It is again young, hopeful, vigorous, and ambitious. It feels within itself the call to action, the urge of unfulfilled desires, aspirations, and ambitions, and it readily falls into the currents which lead it to the scene of action in which these desires may be manifest. We have many instances of this change of feeling in earthly life. We feel tired, discouraged, nay, even disgusted with our earthly affairs at the close of the day, the year, or the exciting period. But rest, sleep, change of scene, and the influx of new impressions make a change, and before long we are filled with longing for new activities and action. The majority of persons are not really tired of life or disgusted with the things of life. They are merely experiencing the race impulse towards something else, some other place. A change of scene and occupation would work a speedy cure for them. They are not world-weary, they are merely mentally and emotionally tired. And thus it is with a tired soul. Change its place of abode to the astral and give it the elixir of life, and it is ready for another part to play in the drama of life. Another point on which there is much misunderstanding is the matter of the unconsciousness of the soul in the matter of choice of the environment of the new birth. It is true that in souls of low development the process is almost wholly instinctive, and there is practically no conscious realization or choice in the matter. But when the soul begins to develop and unfold in spiritual knowledge, it begins to have spiritual insight and consciousness, and in many cases it sees dimly as in a dream, during the second soul slumber, the conditions toward which it is being drawn, and often exercise a decided choice. In case of a strong personality, provided the spiritual development is there is often more than a dreamlike choice, for such a soul does much to make circumstance for itself in its new birth, always within the limitation of its karma, of course. Another point which should be cleared up is that regarding the character of the desire which serve as a motive power for rebirth. It is not meant that these desires are necessarily low or unworthy desires of longing. On the contrary, they may be of the highest character and might be more properly styled aspirations, ambitions, or high aims, but the principle of desire is in them all. Desires high and low are the seeds of action, and the impulse toward action is always a distinguishing feature of desire. Desire always wants to have things, or to do things, or to be things. Love, even of the most unselfish kind, is a form of desire. So is aspiration of the noblest kind. A desire to benefit others is as much a desire as its opposite. In fact, many unselfish souls are drawn back into rebirth simply by the insistent aspiration to accomplish some great work for the race, or to serve others, or to fulfill some duty inspired by love. But high or low, if these desires are connected in any way with the things on earth, they are rebirth motives and rudders. But in conclusion, let us say that no soul which does not in its inmost soul desire rebirth on earth will ever be so reborn. Such a soul is attracted toward other spheres where the attractions of earth exist not. Its karma carries it away from earth, not towards it. But this is the condition of but few, although little by little every soul will experience it in the eons to come. For all are on the path, and spiritual evolution moves surely, though slowly. Those who are interested in this high life of the soul are invited to read the last chapter. If its words appeal to you, you have already taken the next step towards the attainment. End of chapter.